Okay, so this week in the discussions, we're going to focus on AI, and we're going to look at this paper, which analyzed the Heuschia quadriformis proto-sea And what's amazing is that they took this fossil, which is very faint, and they got so much out of it. But it's not like they made it up. It's perfectly reasonable. And they used a computer to augment their work. And I typed in AI, paleontology, and I asked AI if AI is being used in paleontology, and it is. And so here's the sequence. They started with this, which, the paleontologists from 20 years ago or 10 or whatever they discovered it, figured out that it was a kind of cup-shaped thing on top of a little post. But anyway, what they do is they try to get as much out of the image as they can. So here they were coloring in certain parts, like certain muscle fibers maybe. And then they look at other organisms that are similar. And I didn't even read this very carefully to see if this was the similar organism or the same organism, but it has basically the same shape. Looks like this is the fossil that's there at Port Union up in Newfoundland. And then they use a computer to generate what it might have looked like in 3D. So that would be one of the functions of the computer, is visualization, but also interpreting that these things are there, these little things on the ends, which maybe are catching food or something. I don't know if a computer did that or the paleontologist did that. But then they continue with comparing with maybe previous fossils and then using the computer to figure out exactly where all these mussels went. And, um, figuring out how the thing might have looked in a current in the water. So using the computer to do that. And actually making a picture of it in the water, such as an AI image that we would generate just ourselves. I don't know if you guys have used AI to make images. I've been doing it lately. And sometimes it comes out like you like, sometimes not. Although I just made one for the last lecture, made a couple, and it seemed like it was way better than when I tried to use the same AI product. It was Midjourney Bot in their Imagine program. Seemed like it was way easier to use than when I tried to use it 3 months ago. So it's really quite amazing. And so the questions are, considering the faintness of the fossil of Heuschia, the interpretation of Heuschia in this paper is amazing. The interpretation is briefly discussed in chapter 8 video, but in detail in this paper. So one of the things that's clear from the paper is that computer played a large role in the interpretation of the fossil. And so the discussions relate to the Heuschia paper. And at a minimum, I want you to just open the paper and look at the pictures of the fossil and pictures of the interpretations, particularly those generated by the computer. You could read it more carefully and see what the computer did. And I'm pretty sure that paleontologists would have said what they did, what the computer did. So what I did was I asked AI, like Copilot in Bing, I asked it, is AI used in paleontology for interpretation of fossils? And here's the answer. Yes, artificial intelligence is increasingly used in AI to interpret fossils, particularly by analyzing digital images from CT scans to identify and segment fossil structures, just like what we just saw, right? allowing for more detailed and accurate reconstructions of extinct organisms and significantly speeding up the process compared to traditional methods. This is especially helpful for analyzing complex or fragile fossils, exactly what we were looking at. So it looks like AI was used. That paper just came out maybe a few months ago. I'm not sure. It's 2024. So it's a really good example of AI. So for the first question, I asked, discuss how AI will increase the rate of understanding of evolutionary sequences in plants and animals. You're welcome to use AI to answer this question, but don't count any quotes from AI towards your 100 words. For example, you could get this quote and then build around it. And then the second question is, discuss whether you think AI will displace paleontologists or augment their work or both. Like, if you have an AI analyze that, do you really need a paleontologist? AI is going to do better than a paleontologist, and I'll explain why in a minute. Maybe not now, but next year, the year after. So, and I'll explain how AI works, how they develop it. So, I went to the engineers breakfast this morning. We have it every year. There was like 200 people there, or maybe 300, I don't know. But anyway, the speech this morning was on AI. And he was a guy who worked at Amazon, and he was actually the chief operating officer of Snapchat, Snap. They made Snapchat. And he worked at one other tech company that I think you've heard of or I've heard of. I'm not sure. I can't remember the other one. But anyway, he's on the inside, and he knows how all these things work. So he said that for this kind of, he didn't describe paleontology, but he gave an example. He gave an example of interpreting dental scans or dental images or x-rays. And he said what they'll do is they'll get a bunch of dentists and they'll give them like 1,000 images or 10,000, or he even said 1,000,000, and he'll have them analyze the images. So you have like 10 dentists analyzing 1,000,000 images, and then you have all the dentist opinions, and then you have AI look at the 1,000 images with the dentist opinions, and then AI develops the ability to analyze the X-rays, and it synthesizes what all the dentists said, and it actually becomes better at analyzing the images. They just did a study with neurobiology where they did the same thing with brain scans, and they had like, I don't know, 10 neurologists or 100, I don't know how many, give their opinion on these brain scans. And AI is now better than neurologists at finding tumors in brain scans. So if you get, and it makes sense, if you get like 100 neurologists interpreting brain scans and you have 1,000,000 brain scans or whatever, it's going to become better than the neurologists because it'll know what the interpretation is. And so it will do a better job of interpreting the brain scans than the neurologists eventually. And it'll only improve year after year. It's going to get more brain scans and so on. That's why Elon Musk built his big data center with 100,000 NVIDIA CPUs or something, each one having 100 computers on it, something like that. Because he's taken all that car data from all over the country. He can bring in all his Tesla data from all his cars that are driving all over the place, and he can feed all that into the AI, and then AI is going to come up with algorithms to drive, So eventually it'll be better than a driver, a human driver, or at least most human drivers. So, okay. And then there's one other thing I want you to think about with this topic, which is for your and you don't have to answer this, but instead of answering AI and paleontologists, you could think about your own career if you want and answer, how will AI affect the career I'm hoping to go into? And will it displace me or will it help me? for example, they said, or the speaker said in the speech this morning, that AI now does a better job of call center. You know, instead of the call center people, you train AI how to answer the questions that the call center gets, you know, like fixing your refrigerator call center, you know, or some call center. So it kind of, and especially at your age where you're figuring out what career to go into, it's really good to think about how is AI going to affect this. The guy this morning, he said the difference is going to be like, he showed a picture of like a 19th century carriage behind a horse and a flying car. I mean, with AI, the difference in is going to be that dramatic in the coming, he said 5 years from now. So anyway, so if you want to answer that question, AI and paleontologists a little bit differently, you can. Is there any questions before I stop?
Comments, but
Oh yeah, make a comment.
okay. I was gonna say that I kind of think that letting AI think for us is a bit of a moral implication, because at that point we're kind of letting computers think for us. Think how kind of scary that is. And then I don't think they're necessarily better at things than us, because they only know what we tell them. They don't have original thoughts. They just take stuff from everything on the internet and compile it into one thing. So I really think their ability is something that a human could do. They just do it more efficiently because it's just a code running, right?
Mhm.
But they don't have original thought. So I don't really think they are better than that things, to be honest.
Okay. Just in case they didn't hear you on the computer, and they might have, but you said that first thing is there's a moral issue, possibly, where AI makes our decisions for us. And he brought that up in the speech this morning. He said, he gave the example of, let's say you had a bunch of people watching a football game and they were all from ASU. And it would turn out to be good whenever ASU did something good or bad. You know, he said you need to have a representative sample of people who make legitimate observations, not biased observations. And but he did emphasize this is really important. There's all sorts of moral issues associated with AI, such as can you identify the person the thing is based on? Should you be able to summarize a book? There's a big lawsuit out now where John Grisham and some of the big authors are suing AI because they're summarizing his book, you know, or something like that, or maybe writing a book. And then also, it's either music artists or something else. There's another lawsuit out there right now where they're suing to try to prevent AI from, in a sense, stealing their work. Oh, it's computer programmers. Because they took all the, I don't know if you know what GitHub is, but GitHub is where everybody stores their computer programs. So AI goes through all the GitHubs and figures out all these computer programming methods. But then in this lawsuit, the people suing lost because AI then took the programs and redid them a little bit so they weren't the exact programs. You know, you can reconfigure them a bit so they aren't the exact same, and they lost the lawsuit. The AI won the lawsuit, or the people behind AI. So it gets very complicated, you know, the AI issues, the moral issues are very important. And what was the second thing you said?
I don't think that it's better at doing things than us. I think it's really just more time efficient, because it's taking information like that humans know that humans put out there. It's not having original thought. It's just compiling different.
Okay, so you
There's
said,
nothing wrong in that.
yeah, so you said you don't think AI is better than humans.
Oh.
And I think the examples he gave this morning is it is better. For the example, the neurobiology interpretation of tumors,
But
they can do an actual test to see if it's better than a neurologist.
it
Yeah.
has the whole internet like right then and there. Like the human isn't like looking at everything on the internet to do it. And I don't think that's true for every neurologist.
Well, so what they did, I just want to go over the process again.
Yeah,
And you bring out a good point. So they'll take 1,000 or 1,000,000 images of brains, and they'll hire 10 neurologists to look at them and tell them what they are, the interpretations. So professional neurologists, and that's how they build their model. So it's not just like scanning off the web necessarily. It's actually doing an experiment to
no, but I mean the AI is scanned off the web. It's identified like brain tumors and stuff. Because
not in this case. Okay, so you said AI is scanning off the web, but in this case, they're getting brain images from hospitals.
yeah,
They're hiring neurologists to interpret them.
no, I get that.
And then,
I mean that when the AI is like looking at these photos from the hospitals, right, to identify if it has a tumor, where the tumor is, it's comparing it to other scans that are on the internet. That's how it's figuring it out.
I don't, I don't think so because it's getting the brain scan, it's having the neurologist interpret it. So it has 10 neurologist interpretations. So it has 10 actual people in
Yeah.
there, not there, but they're probably being paid
Oh,
probably $1 million to analyze, because neurologists get a lot of money. Probably a lot of money to actually analyze the image. And then they're taking those professional image analyses by 10 neurologists. So they're getting the opinion of 10 people and they're comparing them all. And they might actually know the outcome too. They might be told, well, this was a tumor, after they operate or something. So they know the interpretations and they know probably the results. So some of those neurologists are probably wrong and some are right, but they know which ones were right. And I'm building this all up in my mind,
yeah,
I'm taking it a step further. But so so let's think of a different example. Can you think of a different example where a human would be better? Like what?
yeah. So in my English class in high school, we had to do these like book analysis things, and so we would put into AI. It was kind of like a little activity my teacher wanted us to do. We were like, write me a report on how this, like, essentially ask AI a question about the book and tell it to implement in like an in-text citation from the book. It was implementing in-text citations from a different book by that author, not the one that we were asking it about. So it like
Okay,
tells you wrong
that's a good
information.
example.
Yeah,
Okay, so you said, just in case people can't hear, that your English class had AI analyze the book and do in-text citations, and it did the in-text citations wrong. And it got them from the wrong book. And I completely agree with you. Like I've had AI do things, and maybe we've even done it in this class where it's been wrong. And so that's a weakness. But I think the thing the speaker would say from this morning is it would get better, and maybe 3 years from now it will do it correctly. But I agree with you that humans are better than AI at some things at this point.
yeah. It's also, it lacks the like humanist kind of perspective. So like any jobs that are social science based or whatever, I don't think AI can ever take over because they don't have like human empathy and human like.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a good point. So when you talk about humanness, AI is never going to become human. It's computer algorithms, it's equations, it's not human, if you want to call it soul, spirit, whatever. It's not that. So AI will never replace humans. And so, for example, counseling, like you could, I mean, but you could set up, I'm thinking, like, let's say you had a problem with alcoholism. And so there's this AI tool online to deal with alcoholism. And it could say, what should I do? I feel like I need a drink right now. what should I do? And it could tell you, well, why don't you go for a hike? I don't know. I mean, there could be some answers. So for counseling, maybe it would have some answers.
I don't think it could, because you can only like program so much into the AI, right? You can think up a bunch of different scenarios in your head, like this is their problem, this is what they're going through, this is how you solve it. But every one situation is different and all the factors in it aren't always the same. So I don't think it could like properly help every single person's situation since they're all different.
Right. Well, and first of all, I don't have the background to answer your question or properly respond either, or I don't. I think you have a very legitimate point and you could be right. Oh, of
It's
course,
not right and
AI
wrong,
is not going to
obviously.
do everything a human could do or interpret the intricacies of the human's person's feelings or things like that. Yeah. But those are great comments. Do you have any more comments?
No, I think that the day that we just let AI kind of determine what is right and wrong, especially like academically and stuff, is kind of a scary one. Because, obviously it has its issues. I know they're like improving it over time, but we're essentially letting it think for us.
Yeah, it's kind of a
So, I
scary
think it's
thing.
scary. It's
Yeah.
like, if we're giving it the ability to do this, what else, what other abilities are we giving it? Like, I think it's a little bit of maybe a privacy breach in some situations, like, there's just a lot to it that's kind of wishy-washy.
Yeah, like not necessarily supporting Elon Musk, but he didn't think AI was a good thing. He wanted to can AI. And I think there's a lot of people who feel that way. Um, so that's a very, very good question. Very, the thing I wanted to say is any technology that we develop can be good or bad. And so like nuclear weapons, obviously bad. Nuclear reactor is not necessarily good, but yeah. Well, he made the point that with it, that you have to be very careful with AI and you have to make sure that it's a tool that's used for good. But of course you could use it for bad. I mean, you could use AI all over the place for bad things.
I think the difference is like, it's a tool, but it shouldn't be used in the place of like doing work or original thought or anything. Like, I think it's more of a helping thing, not a doing all the work for you thing.
Okay, so it shouldn't replace.
It shouldn't replace humans, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think it should.
Well, one thing he pointed out is you could make laws with respect to AI. You can
Yeah.
govern it so that he did say that you've got to have some laws in there with AI.
Start coming up as it gets
Yeah,
better.
you can't just let it go. It's too powerful. So, yeah. Um, okay. Anybody else have any other comments? All right. Well, thank you.